We all remember very well the words of Mark Ray from 2018 when he announced a huge offensive in terms of electrification, promising that GM would soon take over the leading position from Tesla today. It's all clear that this was nothing more than wishful thinking that GM officials had and still have, which is even more problematic. Their EV strategy turned out to be completely wrong in the recent disaster risk. Chevy Blazer EV looks like the final nail in the coffin for GM's EV future. Stay with us and find out more about the 5 biggest fails that completely ruined GM's electrification plans. Welcome to Evolution Tech, where technology meets tomorrow, leading the charge into the ever-evolving landscape of electric vehicles, EVs, and groundbreaking green technologies. Number 5. Chevy Blazer EV disaster. Disaster after a couple of high-end models, such as the GMC Hummer and Cadillac Lyriq. GM finally introduced the model that aims at a more mainstream market. Although still quite pricey, the all-electric Blazer seems like a great proposal. 2 high-performance versions, including one with 557 horsepower, 300 and range at a decent charging rate, definitely put it on the map. Unfortunately, customers didn't need much time to realize that they'd made some of the worst decisions of their lives when they purchased this electric vehicle. Because quickly enough the Blazer EV started to show so many negative sides. Apparently this electric crossover is so bad that Consumer Reports testers called it the worst car they've ever tested, and they're not the only ones. The Inside EV's test driver ended up stranded in rural Virginia after spending just 28 hours with a Blazer EV. First, the infotainment system failed, and then the battery, which left the test driver no other choice but to abandon the test vehicle. Probably the most indicative is the story from Edmund testers who bought a brand new Blazer EV and faced so many problems during their TW month 2,000 meters ownership. Once again, numerous infotainment issues showed along with serious battery malfunctions. Eventually, they took the vehicle to diagnostics and found out that a 2-month vehicle already managed to gather 23 fault codes. Finally, the most important are customer complaints, and they are numerous. Once again, they refer to things like that infotainment system, in-cart electrics, charging system navigation, etc. The biggest problem of all is that GM dealers don't know how to fix these issues, so most of the broken Blazers are still stuck at repair shops. All these issues, along with instantly gaining a negative reputation, left GM no other choice but to suspend sales until it solves all these problems. Number 4. Charging issues. Charging issues. Many thought that GM had finally solved battery issues with its 4th generation of electric cars. The new Ultium technology indeed looked very promising, with large capacity and quite impressive charging speeds. However, it looks like the new technology is far from seamless and still needs polishing. Numerous charging issues have been reported so far, and if we consider that Ultium-based vehicles still aren't mass sellers, as around 10,000 of them have been sold in 2023, such a high number of complaints seems quite indicative. Many owners face serious issues, and one of them, a user named CAC, shared his experience on the Inside EV's website. He said that he stopped at one of the charging stations with 30% of the battery. After less than 2 minutes, the charging just stopped and a charge port error message appeared on the screen. His all-electric Hummer wouldn't charge at all. After a visit to a local dealer and the deletion of fault codes, he was able to charge only at a slow 9 kW rate. Other users report charging troubles as well. Both Cadillac Lyriq and Chevy Blazer owners. What's symptomatic is that all of them had troubles at Electrify America's public stations, where their EVs weren't able to get anything better than a 7 kW charging rate from a charger. Apparently the problem is that, unlike Tesla, GM doesn't have its own charging station, so the only possible solution was to integrate its vehicle apps and software with third-party charging services. We're talking about Blink Charge, Point Go, Semic Connect, etc. As you can see, the user experience hasn't been particularly great so far, and we don't expect to see bigger changes anytime soon. Number 3. Recalls. Cadillac Lyriq and GMC Hummer EV recalls GM's Ultium-based electric vehicles have a lot of problems besides the charging issues. Some of the owners of the company's most prestigious models, the GMC Hummer EV and Cadillac Lyriq, faced occasional loss of power while driving, as that's considered a safety issue by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. GM had no other option but to recall a certain number of these 2 models produced in 2022 and 2023. According to officials, the problem that could lead to a loss of power comes from bad connections in their high-voltage battery packs, which could either be improperly positioned or incorrectly welded. As a result of this recall, GM will completely replace high-voltage battery packs on these vehicles free of charge. Another recall was issued recently, and although it isn't directly related to the Ultium battery technology nor any other advanced technology issues, clearly indicates that GM management is struggling a lot with the VEV production optimization, which refers to cutting production costs and finally making EVs profitable. Namely, it turned out that rear seatbelt brackets had been improperly welded, which could lead to an increased risk of injury in certain crash conditions. The recall was issued early this year. Meanwhile, GM asked owners not to use rear left seat and center seats until they fix the issue. Finally, number 2, Chevy Bolt. Issue introduced in 2016, that Chevy Bolt was supposed to be one of the front runners of the early EV market. Unfortunately, it never managed to gain the level of popularity officials were expecting. That's why it doesn't surprise that GM planned its discontinuation years ago. Its end was planned for the end of 2023, but the last few years brought an unexpected twist that forced GM management to improvise and figure out a new strategy quickly. Namely, after the 2021 update and the introduction of the version, as well as the big EV market growth, the Bolt suddenly became popular in the world of too expensive high-end EVs, the relatively affordable. Bolt imposed itself as a rational choice, which led to 38,000 units sold in 2022. This growth continued in the next year, so Chevy delivered 50,000 units only in the first 3 quarters of 2023. With such a sudden change, GM officials had no choice but to announce the new revamped Bolt, which would gain better battery and more advanced technologies but remain affordable. The only problem is that this is pure improvisation, that GM still doesn't have a plan for this, namely the Michigan plant where the original Bolt was produced until the end of 2023 has. Number 1, Silverado EV and Sierra. EV production delay. Not only that, now there's no room for the Chevy Bolt to be produced in the Michigan plant, but there is also no money to start the production of its successors, probably the two most important models for the future. Of course, we're talking about the all-electric versions of the Chevy Silverado and GMC Sierra. About models they'll succeed, the two biggest moneymakers in the company's range. Namely, due to the lack of resources, GM has been forced to push out some of the EV investments, including the adaptation of the Michigan plant. And if we can trust the latest reports, the production of these two electric pickups won't start before 2025. In our humble opinion, this is the biggest blow of all, because everyone knows that these two electric pickups are the company's two most important prospects for the future. Meanwhile, the Cybertruck has finally arrived. The all-electric F-150 has been around for a while the all-electric Ram 1500 is on its way and should start production in the last quarter of this year. And another massive investment has been put on hold for the last quarter of 2023, but officials now promise it'll hit the market by the end of this quarter. We'll see about that, but what's more problematic is that recent reports suggest a massive price increase. This was supposed to be an affordable electric SUV, pretty much a replacement for the Chevy Bolt move. We initially expected to see this EV with a starting price of around $35,000, but now it looks like the cheapest versions could easily jump to $50,000, which is yet another indicator that GM management is losing track. Thanks for watching and see you next time.